RPE this, RIR that, volume progression, mesocycle, microcycle, volume, deload, intensity, so on. Has science ruined bodybuilding? Over the last few years, the term science-based has become somewhat of a buzzword in the fitness industry, especially within those bodybuilding circles. Guys like Jeff Nippard have done an absolutely amazing job at bringing this to a more mainstream audience with videos like science-based push-pull legs routine, the best science-based way to train your biceps, your lats, and all of those kind of things that you've probably seen yourself. And I think that this is absolutely amazing. It is great to get this kind of information out to that general population. Those old school bro methods of chicken, broccoli and rice, 30 set arm days with every set to failure, and training legs once every 10 days. All those things that we all saw on bodybuilding.com growing up probably caused a lot more harm than they did good. And now I feel like people getting into bodybuilding these days don't quite go through the same thing. And if they didn't cause any harm to somebody, then they, at the very least, caused a lot of wasted time when there's a lot more better, safer and efficient options out there. That being said, science can definitely go too far. And there are a lot of people taking the science too far. If something hasn't been proven in a meta-analysis, then it's dumb bro shit. If you're intermittent fasting during a massing phase, but it's the only way you can actually adhere to it with your lifestyle, then you're still dumb, purely because the science says that 4 to 5 protein feedings a day is optimal. Bro science dogma is slowly turning into real science dogma. But is it ruining bodybuilding? Science-based programming and nutrition essentially means that the methods implemented are done in a way which purely takes into account the results and data from actual scientific studies. And on the face of that, that sounds amazing. It's proved by science. But it is massively flawed. More on that point later. But as I was saying, a science-based approach would be that if the science says that training your quads 3 days a week with 18 sets is optimal for growth, then you bet your ass you're in the gym training your quads 3 days a week with 18 sets. And if the science says that you need 40 grams of protein spread 5 times throughout the day, and 40 grams of that before bed should be casein, then that is exactly what you are doing because the science says it. To some people, this sounds amazing and extremely satisfying to know you are doing something that is proven by science. And to other people, it sounds insanely stressful. And that is kind of why science might be ruining bodybuilding. If not for everyone, maybe for you. As I mentioned earlier, there are a bunch of issues with dogmatically following purely scientific studies. For one, scientific studies quite often just confirm the anecdotal experience that we've seen for years and years. For example, recent studies have shown us the importance of training a muscle in a fully lengthened position for hypertrophy. In fact, it might be the most important thing, that loaded stretch, which is something that bodybuilders have been doing for years and years and years and years and years. Arnold was doing it with his dumbbell flies back in the day. So if you just discounted that anecdote and experience because it wasn't in the science, then you'd likely be about 50 years behind reality of what's actually happening. Another reason that isn't mentioned enough is that not everything's been studied yet. How many hundreds of thousands of individual variations are there within your training and your nutrition? Infinite, pretty much. And let's be honest, bodybuilding in particular is not a heavily well-funded area of science because there's more important things out there. I would rather people were funding cancer research than bodybuilding research, and hopefully you'd agree with that. So when you don't have a study for every single thing in bodybuilding, you need something to fall back on, and that's going to be anecdote. Another important flaw in only following the science is bias. I hate to break it to you, but a lot of the studies that you have seen yourself have been funded by external companies. And yes, some of those companies sell products. Funny that those products they sell are also what are being studied. It is no coincidence that the creatine study is being supported by a company that sells creatine, or the new protein study is being supported by a company that sells protein powder. I'm not saying these things aren't efficacious, I'm just saying in some situations, it's not a coincidence. Bias is human nature and it is unavoidable, unfortunately. And I'm definitely not saying that all scientific research is corrupt. I'm just saying that you should be aware that this could be a potential factor, and some things should be taken with a pinch of salt. Point number 4, studies have a ton of limitations. The main one being time and duration of the studies. Actual notable muscle growth takes years and years and years. But most studies on muscle growth are 4, 6, 12, 16 weeks long at the absolute most. So sure, something may work well or better than something else for 2 to 3 months, but is it going to work better or more than something else for 2 to 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Who knows? Aside from that, there is also the limitation of sample size within studies. A lot of studies in bodybuilding and body composition are going to have a sample size of around 10 to 20, usually college-aged males, who usually have 1 to 2 years experience of resistance training. So why would that information apply to you, a 28-year-old that's been lifting for 6 years, or you, a 42-year-old mum who's just picking up weights for the first time? It probably doesn't. And honestly, one of the biggest flaws of scientific research is that they don't take into account, in most situations anyway, human psychology. This is important, because we are humans and we have psychology. If we don't want to do something, we usually won't do it. Or if we do it, we probably won't do it to our best. So yes, training 10 sets of 50 reps in the squat to all-out failure until you're throwing up everywhere might come out, I doubt it, but it might come out as the best way to build your quads. But who the hell is going to do that? Human psychology is going to read that study and say hell no. Consistency in your training, adherence in your training and nutrition is always going to beat optimality. So if application of the science comes at a detriment of consistency and adherence, then I would confidently bet that your results will be worse, not better. And the last flaw of purely following the science is that for some people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, it takes the fun and the enjoyment out of it. For most people who are watching this video, or probably everyone watching this video, this is a hobby. We do it for fun. We aren't making a living from bodybuilding. Going to the gym for you isn't a battle against the iron, brother. It's your hobby that you do before you go to your boring ass 9 to 5. I hate to break it to you. So if you aren't having fun when you're doing it, then why the hell are you doing it? If you love having an arm day, then do a damn arm day. You aren't a robot devoid of human emotions, so don't let scientific studies make you think that you can be. It's so easy to become detached from what we actually enjoy in the search, in the chase of optimality. But I would seriously argue for anyone that in most situations, enjoyment is much more important than optimality. So I've now gone on a lot about the issues of following a science-based approach in your bodybuilding endeavours. But don't worry, I'm not just here to take a shit on your doorstep and then leave. I'm going to give you an alternative. An alternative to that purely dogmatic science-based approach, which in my humble opinion is way better. And that is the evidence-based approach. An evidence-based approach is the wise old grandfather of science. An evidence-based approach combines the scientific literature with years and years of anecdote from people who have experienced training thousands of people. Yes, data from a lab in a controlled setting, in a controlled environment, can tell us a lot. But so can thousands of hours of working with everyone from elite athletes to Gen Pop. Mathematics and science always looks great on paper, but unfortunately in reality it doesn't always work out like it should when applied to real life, and that is why Anecdote is so important. And because of that, if you can't adapt, if you can't move on the fly using your own experience and that of others, then you're going to run into trouble. Evidence-based practitioners are the people that you want to be following. The people who know and understand the scientific literature, but also have thousands and thousands of hours of implementing it to real people. They understand the limitations of the science, and they remain open-minded to Anecdote. People like Steve Hall, Mike Israetel, Eric Helms, these are the kind of people that you should be following. They are the absolute leaders, in my opinion, in this space, and I think if you aren't following them, then you're missing out. So, my opinion, for whatever that's worth, is science ruining bodybuilding? For me, no. Science has not ruined bodybuilding. It's made me love it even more. As a super nerd, I love deep diving into those minute little details. Min-maxing my training to get the absolute most from every session and timing my nutrition to get the most from it. I want to know how these things work, even if it has little to no impact on my actual life and the results that I get. I absolutely love training and nutrition, and I absolutely love learning the science behind it. But do you know who science is ruining bodybuilding for? It's ruining it for that 17-year-old kid who can't train arms on a Friday with his mates at the gym because his science-based program tells him that it's leg day. It's ruining it for that 15-year-old kid who hates how he looks because he just feels super skinny, but he won't eat his mum's meals because she's not weighing out the macros. These kids don't need to be meticulous. They don't need to be following a science-based approach. They need to be having fun. And the same goes for anybody who isn't a kid. If following the science, if trying to optimize is taking away that enjoyment for you, it's making you not love the process, not love bodybuilding, building your body, then why the hell are you following it? If you love it, then follow it. If you don't, then don't. Do what you enjoy. As with most things in life, there is a middle ground. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. It's perfectly okay to be here or here or here. Be where you are happy to be. Yes, I love the science. And yes, science tells us how to make the most out of our training to get the best results. But that doesn't mean that you have to know everything about it to be successful. If you don't love the science aspect, the scientific approach to training, then you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't follow it. Have fun and pursue bodybuilding, fitness, nutrition in your own way. Don't feel pushed into a science-based crowd just because that's what everyone on the internet is doing. Because let me tell you something, bodybuilding is a long fucking journey, and it is even longer if you're doing it in a way that you aren't enjoying. So make sure you do enjoy it, because otherwise, what is the point? Hit the top link in my description for all the information on progressive physique coaching. We have some unbeatable offers and provide a top quality service, so make sure to check that out if you're interested. Subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every single week, so join the team and don't miss out. Thank you as always for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And until the next one, see you later guys.